Okay, so I want you to just picture this for a second. You're walking onto a university campus, any campus.
Right.
You see the manicured quads, students with coffees, those beautiful old library
The
buildings.
ivy on the walls, yep.
Exactly. And if I just stopped someone and asked, what actually makes this place run? What do you think they'd say?
Oh, you'd get the highlight reel, for sure.
Yeah.
They'd point to the giant endowment,
Yeah, the
or the
endowment.
football stadium, maybe a Nobel Prize winner in the physics department.
Yeah.
The shiny stuff.
Right. The stuff you put on a brochure. But we've got a pile of research here today, articles, HR reports, some pretty serious studies that argue we are all looking at the wrong thing.
Completely the wrong thing.
They argue the real engine of a university is something totally invisible.
And something that's often just kind of rusting away in the background.
We are talking about management quality. Today, we are diving into this really compelling article, The Hidden Infrastructure, along with some heavy data from CPA-HR. And the idea is fascinating.
It really is.
Management isn't just administrative overhead. It's the actual infrastructure. It's like the plumbing or the power grid that decides if a university soars or just suffocates.
That is the perfect metaphor. Because think about it. You never walk down the street and go, wow, look at that amazing sewer system.
No.
You only notice it when a pipe bursts and your basement floods. And management in higher ed is exactly that. We ignore it, and then we're shocked when a department falls apart.
But here's the paradox that I really want to dig into. Universities are, by definition, filled with some of the smartest people on the planet.
Literal rocket scientists.
Right, world-class thinkers. So why does all this literature suggest these places are often just terrible at managing people?
It all comes down to this one fundamental blind spot.
Yeah,
We treat management as an assumed competency.
assumed competence.
Yeah, the thinking is like, well, you have a PhD in neuroscience, you're a genius, so obviously you know how to handle a conflict between two staff members over vacation time.
Which is just absurd. It's like saying, you're a brilliant chef, so you can definitely fix my car's transmission.
Exactly. But this assumption has these massive, real-world consequences. We're not just talking about some annoyed employees. The data we're looking at today shows this hidden infrastructure literally decides who gets ahead, who burns out, and who just walks out the door.
And we are definitely going to get to the solutions, because some places like Arizona State, Vanderbilt, they are actually fixing this. But first, let's diagnose the sickness. Why is management so uniquely tricky in academia?
Well, to really get it, you have to understand this concept from Gigliotti and Rubin. They call it the expertise-authority gap.
The expertise-authority gap. Okay, I think I know where this is going. Is this the classic promote your best player to be the coach problem?
You're spot on. I mean, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
In higher ed, how do you get promoted?
It's your research, right? Or how much grant money you bring in.
Exactly. It's almost exclusively based on that technical or scholarly excellence. Let's say you're the best grant writer in the biology department. You bring in millions. The university wants to reward you.
So they make you department chair.
Right. They hand you authority,
Yeah.
and suddenly you are in charge of 20 people's careers, their livelihoods. You're managing budgets, HR disputes. You're trying to build a team culture. But, and here's the gap, you've had probably 0 minutes of training on how to do any of it.
So your expertise is in writing grants, but your authority is in managing humans.
And that gap between the two, that's where all the dysfunction lives. And there's this stat from the CPA HR report, that's the big HR association for universities, that just hits this home. 60% of staff say their relationship with their supervisor is a top reason they stay or go.
That makes total sense. People join a mission, but they leave a boss.
But here's the kicker. Fewer than half of institutions provide any kind of structured training for those new managers. So we're taking our star performers and just setting them up to fail.
It really sounds like a sink-or-swim philosophy.
Yeah.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't there an argument that trial by fire kind of builds character? You learn on the job.
That is the traditional defense, absolutely. I suffered through it, so should you. But the data suggests that trial by fire is actually just arson. There was a study by Marshall and his team that interviewed mid-level admin.
Yay.
They all used that exact phrase, trial by fire. But they didn't describe it as a great learning experience. They described it as trauma.
So it's not building character, it's just building resentment.
And it creates this thing called the move out to move up dynamic. Because there's no internal pipeline, no one teaching you how to lead. Talented people figure out that the only way to get a better role, or even just a better boss, is to leave the university entirely.
Which has got to be insanely expensive for the school. All that institutional knowledge just walks out the door.
A huge brain drain. But look, if the vibes argument doesn't convince you, the financial data will. And this is where the research gets, well, startling. We have to talk about the Hoffman study from 2022.
Yes, this was the part that made me stop reading and pull out a calculator. Because we think of a bad boss as an annoyance. But Hoffman is basically saying a bad boss is a tax on your lifetime earnings.
A massive tax. He and his team tracked employees for 7 years. They wanted to see how careers unfolded based only on the quality of their manager.
So, okay, two parallel universes. Universe A, I get a great boss. Universe B, I get a terrible one. What's the damage?
In Universe A, with a top quartile manager, you see a median salary growth of 28% over those 7 years.
28%. Okay, not bad.
But in Universe B, with a bottom quartile manager, your growth is only 16%.
Wow. That is almost half. That is thousands and thousands of dollars compounding over a whole career.
And you have to ask yourself why. It's not magic. A good manager knows how to advocate for you in budget meetings. They know how to position your work so the dean sees it. A weak manager, they might like you, but they just don't have the skills or the political capital to get you that raise.
It's about advocacy. That makes sense.
And it's also about speed. The same study showed that strong managers get their people promoted, on average, 14 months earlier.
14 months, that's more than a year of your life just waiting for the title, waiting for the responsibility you've earned.
And think about what 14 months really means. That's 14 months of feeling stuck. Maybe that delay means you put off buying a house or you can't start a family because you don't feel secure. I mean, we are talking about the trajectory of people's lives.
And this brings up a really tough, but I think necessary point about equity. Because if management quality shapes your financial future, then who gets the good managers becomes a huge justice issue.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the data here it's pretty sobering. It indicates that women and people of color are disproportionately more likely to end up reporting to these weaker managers.
Why? Is that on purpose?
It's probably not conscious, but it's a mix of structural bias and what you could call organizational steering.
Yeah.
Marginalized employees often get steered into departments that are under-resourced or less visible, and those are the places that often have less effective leadership.
So if you're already fighting an uphill battle, you're also more likely to be tied to an anchor in the form of a bad boss.
That's it, exactly. And the article argues really strongly, you can't just have some diversity and inclusion office on paper. If you don't fix the management infrastructure, you are just pouring water into a leaky bucket. You will lose the very people you say you want to recruit.
That's a heavy thought. Okay, so we've covered the cost to the individual. Let's zoom out to the university itself, because I can hear a skeptical provost saying, look, turnover is just the cost of doing business. Why should the institution care about this from, like, a strategic level?
2 words: execution velocity.
Execution velocity. Okay, that sounds like it's from a Silicon Valley pitch deck, not a faculty meeting.
It does, right? But it applies perfectly. Every single university has a strategic plan. You know, that glossy PDF that says, we will reinvent learning by 2030.
Right, and it usually just sits in a drawer.
It dies in a drawer.
Yeah.
But this study by Scott and his colleagues, it found that initiatives led by managers with high coaching skills, people who actually know how to manage, are 2.3 times more likely to hit their goals on time and on budget.
2.3 times. That is not a small difference. That is success versus failure.
It is. If you have weak managers, you're basically just gambling with your own strategic plan. And beyond that, there's the issue of resilience. Some people call it the bus factor.
As in, what happens if your key person gets hit by a bus?
A little morbid, but yeah. In a team with a weak manager, knowledge gets hoarded. Only one person knows how to run the payroll software, right, or understands the weird filing system.
Yeah.
If that person leaves, the whole department grinds to a halt.
Whereas a good manager is constantly cross-training people.
Exactly. They document processes. They're mentoring their successors. The data shows that departments with these development-focused managers recover 40% faster from a leadership transition. They don't skip a beat.
It's like a sports team that falls apart if the star quarterback gets sick versus a team where the system is so strong the backup can step in and win.
That is the definition of good infrastructure. It works even when one part of it is under stress.
Okay, so the problem is expensive, it's inequitable, and it's inefficient. Let's talk solutions. Because the knee-jerk reaction in higher ed is always, let's do a workshop, Tuesday at 2, brown bag lunch, we'll talk about leadership.
And the researchers are practically screaming from the pages, please, for the love of God, stop doing that.
Why? What's wrong with a one-off workshop?
because they just don't change behavior. It's called scrap learning. You go, you get inspired, you learn a new acronym, then you go back to your desk, you see 50 unread emails, and you immediately go back to your old habits. The article says you need a system, not a seminar.
A system. So let's look at the schools that actually built one. You brought up Arizona State earlier. What did they do?
ASU didn't just offer training. They built a whole leadership ecosystem. They have academies for new supervisors, peer coaching, online tools. But the genius wasn't just the content. It was the incentive.
How so?
They tied participation to advancement. If you want to be promoted into a leadership role, you have to show you've actually engaged with this stuff.
So it's not optional. It's not an extracurricular. It's a gate you have to pass through.
Exactly. It sends a message to the entire university that managing people isn't a hobby, it's a core professional requirement. And their engagement scores on supervisor support shot up 18 points. That's a huge shift.
Okay, now compare that to the University of Michigan. They took on a different part of the problem, what they call the black box.
Right. Most bad managers have no idea they're bad managers because who's going to tell them?
It's too awkward.
So Michigan rolled out the leadership pulse.
Which is just a survey.
It's a very specific, transparent feedback loop. Staff rate their supervisors on 8 key behaviors: psychological safety, clear communication, things like that. And here's the key. The managers see the data. They see the scores.
Oof, that has to be terrifying for some of them.
It can be, but it breaks the delusion. You can't keep thinking you're a great people person if your whole team rates you a 2 out of 5 on listening. It forces reflection. And get this, voluntary turnover among their high performers dropped 22%.
22%. That is significant. Now, I want to ask about Vanderbilt because they focused on coaching. And for a lot of people, coaching and training sound like the same thing.
Yeah, they're not. Think about a really specific, hard conversation you have to have. Let's say you have an employee who's brilliant, but they're just toxic in meetings. They roll their eyes, they interrupt people.
The brilliant jerk, a classic academic character.
The classic. So training is watching a PowerPoint that says, give constructive feedback. Coaching is sitting down with an expert and actually role-playing that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I say this and they get defensive, what's my next line?
It's a rehearsal.
It's a safe place to practice. Vanderbilt set up this confidential internal coaching service so managers aren't just told what to do, they get help with how to do it.
I can see why that's so much more effective. People avoid those conversations because they're scary.
And avoidance is the root of almost all management failure. The teams that were led by these coached managers, they had 12% higher engagement.
Okay, there's one last example, and it deals with the real currency of academia: prestige. Northeastern University.
Yes, universities love giving out awards. But what are they usually for?
Landing a huge grant, publishing a big book, being famous.
Individual achievement. Northeastern created the Leadership Impact Award. And it's specifically for managing people well. It rewards the person who built up their team, who created a great culture.
So it signals that making other people better is just as valuable as being the smartest person in the room.
Precisely. And in the departments that embraced this, internal promotion rates went up by 19%. They proved you could succeed by staying and growing right where you are.
I love these solutions. But I have to be the realist for a second. This stuff, coaching, academies, feedback systems, it all costs money. And higher ed budgets are bleeding right now.
Yeah.
Can a university really afford to spend on soft skills when they're cutting faculty lines?
That is the million-dollar question. But the counter-argument from all this research is, can you afford not to? Just think about the cost of turnover. To replace one mid-level administrator costs about 150% of their salary.
In lost productivity, recruiting, training.
All of it. So if you lose 5 good people because of one bad manager, you've already spent more than that coaching program would have cost.
It's the difference between buying oil for your car versus buying a whole new engine when it seizes up.
Exactly. The oil costs something, sure, but it's a lot cheaper than the engine.
And there's also a structural fix that doesn't really cost money, right?
Yeah.
The Georgia Tech example.
Yes, span of control. They found managers with 20 direct reports, which is impossible. Others had 1 or 2. They just reorganized to hit that sweet spot of 5 to 9 reports. And they gave those managers more budget authority so they weren't always asking for permission.
And the result was just more efficiency.
Decision times dropped by 35%. That's like free money. It's just better organizational design.
I want to wrap up by connecting all this to a concept from the very end of the reading, which I found really profound: the psychological contract.
This is really the why behind all of this.
For decades, the deal in higher ed, the contract, was simple. It was, You give us loyalty, you take slightly lower pay, and we give you absolute stability in return.
The tenure track, the pension, a job for life.
But that deal is dead, or it's on life support at least, with budget cuts and adjuncts. I mean, nobody feels that safe anymore.
Right. The loyalty for security contract is broken. So what replaces it? The authors argue the New Deal is about meaning and belonging. People stay because the work matters and they feel like they are seen and valued.
And the manager is the person who delivers on that promise.
They are the delivery mechanism. The university president can give a great speech about meaning, but your manager is the one who negotiates that contract with you every single week in your one-on-one meeting. If the manager fails, the contract is broken.
So management isn't just efficiency. It's about keeping the soul of the place intact in this, gig economy world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
So here is our final thought for you. If you accept this argument that management is infrastructure like a bridge or a power grid, I just want you to look around your own organization. How much deferred maintenance are you sitting on?
And who is paying the price for the cracks in that foundation?
It's probably the people you can least afford to lose.
It usually is.
If you want to see the actual survey questions Michigan used or those, frankly, scary salary charts from the Hoffman study, we've got links to the research curated for you. It's really worth a look.
Definitely an eye-opener.
Thanks for deep diving with us. We'll see you next time.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.